Good morning, everyone. I will call to order the Board of Clackamas County Commissioners. Issues and updates on March 21st, 2023. County Administrator Gary Schmidt, you're up.
Thank you, Chair Smith. Commissioner Savas is out of the office today. All the other commissioners are present. Chair, would you please convene as the Housing Authority of Clackamas County?
I will recess as the Board of County Commissioners and convene as a Housing Authority of Clackamas County.
You are now meeting as a Housing Authority. Online joining you is Housing Commissioner Ann Leenstra. Good morning, Ann.
Good morning.
This is a request for consent agenda. Item 1, approval of a resolution 1975 acknowledging the financial statement findings and plan of corrective action in accordance with ORS 297.466 for fiscal year 2022 audit. No fiscal impact. No county general funds are involved. You heard this last week and you asked it to come back, commissioners. So discuss with you is Adam Brown and Rod Cook from Health, Housing, Human Services and the Housing Authority. Go ahead.
Good morning, Chair Smith, Commissioners. Adam Brown, Deputy Director, Health, Housing, and Human Services. So we're here again this week to go through this resolution that acknowledges a finding in the Housing Authority of Clackamas County's fiscal year 2022 audit and adopt the required plan of action to address that finding. As required by state law, the county carries out an annual audit each year that includes its component units like the Housing Authority. The audit reviews the principles of accounting and methods followed by the agency in recording, summarizing, and reporting its financial transactions and financial condition. It reviews the accuracy and legality of the transactions, accounts, records, files, and financial reports of the officers and employees of the agency as they relate to its fiscal affairs. And it reviews compliance with requirements, orders, and regulations of other public officials which pertain to the financial condition or financial operations of the municipal corporation. Both the organization, through its management, and the auditors have a role in the auditing process. Management is responsible for the preparation and fair presentation of the financial statement in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, and for designing, implementing, and maintaining internal controls relevant to the preparation and presentation of financial statements. The auditor is responsible for obtaining reasonable assurance about whether the financial statements as a whole are free from material misstatement, whether due to fraud or error, and to issue a report that includes their opinions. Auditors exercise their professional judgment. They identify and assess the risks of material misstatement, including through examining and testing. They review internal controls, and they evaluate appropriateness of accounting policies and procedures. In the case of the audit of the Housing Authority, there were no material misstatements or findings related to substantial compliance with relevant laws, regulations, contracts, and grant agreements, nor were there findings related to internal controls that would constitute a material weakness. There was, however, a finding of deficiency related to the preparation of the financial statements. There is an expectation on the part of the auditors that the initial presentation of financial statements meets a certain standard. In our case, due to a significant amount of turnover and staff preparing the statement for the first time, they required a significant amount of editing, which was done in partnership with our auditors to achieve complete, accurate, and understandable financial statement. In articulating the finding, the auditors recommended that the financial statements be prepared by someone with the skills, knowledge, and experience to do so, and then be reviewed by someone who is familiar with financial statement reporting requirements. In response to this finding, the Housing Authority has developed a plan of action as required by the Secretary of State. That includes hiring a new finance manager, which was done in early January, training at least 2 staff on reporting requirements and preparing financial statements, creating a calendaring system and proactive reminders to ensure timely submission of reports, establishing an internal process of centralizing storage of financial documents and training staff on that process, and a review of policies and procedures to allow for improved efficiency in accounting practices. So that's my statements with regard to the audit this morning, and we're happy to take any questions.
On page 85, there's a letter from the Oregon Secretary of State, Audits Division. Significant deficiency. I think that you may have touched on that. She calls it significant deficiency, and we may be using other words. Can you guys talk about that for a minute?
Yeah, so just like sort of any other evaluative framework, there's a scale of the I guess the substantiality of the finding, right? And so my understanding is that material weakness is sort of the highest threshold, and that what you're referencing is kind of a lower level of deficiency. It's a deficiency in what we've done, but it doesn't rise to the level of material weakness, which would be more substantial. So that's related to sort of the degree of the finding.
I'm still reading. Yes, Commissioner West, please go ahead.
On that scale, do we know if it's basically like a 1 to 10 type of scale, or do we know how many points within that scale are, like you said, material weaknesses is like on a scale of 1 to 10 would be 10 would be being bad, that's real bad. And on significant deficiencies, are we at a 2 or a 3? Like, I guess to give an idea like where we're at in severity of issue.
I think it's sort of multiple axes, right? It's not only that deficiency versus, material weakness, but it's also in terms of what it's examining, right? In this case, it was the production of the document itself. It wasn't related to the actual like underlying sort of fiscal elements, right? And so I think that's why it could be.
So it was process.
It was process.
Just use that
and
word, it's
production.
process.
Yeah.
I'm going to cut you off here because you don't need to go very deep, but on page 86, there's 6 recommendations of action from the Secretary of State that we should do. One is establish an internal process, review policies, training classes, monthly calendars, prepare with the GASB reporting requirements. We do that. We hire Moss Adams. And we have a new finance manager that was hired on 1/9/23, who's responsible for adherence to this corrective action plan. Is that suitable for you?
Yes.
Okay. Also, at the very end of this document is a resolution. Commissioners, I assume that you have read that we will be signing as chair, saying that we have approved and adopt the plan and that we'll adhere to the controls listed in it. Is that suitable?
Ooh, I thought I turned that off.
That's okay. Is that suitable to commissioners?
Yes.
Shoal, you have a question?
No,
All right.
that's suitable.
Just wanna
I just
let
want
you
to say,
Yeah.
H3S has got a lot of responsibility. You have a very large department, a lot of moving parts, and I'm sure that this is going to satisfy the Secretary of State's concerns. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, good.
And we're not the only jurisdiction that goes through this. This is fairly minor in my opinion. I know for a fact that our neighboring jurisdictions have gone down this road too. So hearing no further questions and seeing no objections, thank you very much for coming forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Commissioner Leenstra. Chair, would you please convene as the Development Agency?
I will recess as the Housing Authority of Clackamas County and convene as a development agency.
This is Development Agency request for consent agenda. Item 1, approval of an amendment to an intergovernmental agreement with Clackamas River Water relating to the Linwood Avenue Improvement Project. The amendment is a decrease of $32,950. The total agreement value is reduced to $130,830. Funding through Clackamas River Water. No county general funds are involved. Dan Johnson from the Development Agency and Transportation and Development. Go ahead.
Chair Smith, Commissioners, on July 28th of 2022, we collectively entered into an IGA with Clackamas River Water to facilitate design and construct some improvements on Linwood Avenue. Essentially, that IGA identified a dollar amount that they would pay us back on a reimbursement basis. We've got the actual bids, which we'll be talking about here in a second, back, and that number has been adjusted down. So basically, this trues up that dollar amount with the dollar amount that are actually assigned to those services, those water services related to the construction of Linwood Avenue.
Questions or comments? Seeing no objections.
Item 2, approval of an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Milwaukee relating to the Linwood Avenue Improvement Project. Agreement value is $69,540. Funding is through the City of Milwaukee. No county general funds are involved.
Same project, Linwood Avenue. We have IGAs with Clackamas River Water. We have IGAs with Water Environmental Services. And we now are looking for an IGA with the City of Milwaukee. They have facilities within this particular project, which it is an efficient and effective use of dollars to have us design, and with their, they review and approve, but with our design, we construct and they reimburse us to do that work. It helps to create a smoother construction schedule for the projects and doesn't create any angst or conflict between multiple individuals being on that construction site at one given time. So basically, this is an IGA with the City of Milwaukee. I believe it's for water improvements, water lines and related structures for relocation. It identifies the fact that those services are estimated to cost up to $69,540. I do want to identify that there are 2 minor revisions that have been made to the IGA that's before you today. Neither of them are material. There is one on page 3, which basically was an addition by the City of Milwaukee to have any scope changes be in writing, which is a reasonable request, so we made that minor revision. And the second was a Scribner's error in regards to identifying a different agency than the city. So those will be updated and adjusted and brought forward to you on Thursday should the board approve the request.
Any questions or comments? Seeing no objections?
Item 3, approval of a public improvement contract with Moore Excavation for the Linwood Avenue Improvement Project. Total contract value is $6,820,302.50. Funding is through the North Clackamas Revitalization Area. No county general funds are involved.
We've been talking with this project with the board since 2019, October of that lovely year. Is essentially when we entered into the design contract. The South Linwood Avenue Improvement Project is located in the North Clackamas Revitalization Area. The project essentially is to redesign the avenue from Monroe Street to Johnson Creek Boulevard, a priority within the plan area to improve neighborhood streets to accommodate all modes of transportation, enhance safety and accessibility, and upgraded needed stormwater improvements in that particular area. The project provides safety and connectivity improvements to multiple modes of transportation, which also address these various infrastructure improvements I've identified. The project was advertised in accordance with ORS and LCRB rules on December 7th, 2022. Bids were open on January 19th, 2023. The county received 5 bidders, which in all honesty is great in today's bidding market and environment. After review of the bids, Moore Excavation was determined to be the lowest responsive bidder. So basically, staff is recommending this go forward, and we approve that request for the contract in question. I'll tell you that I believe this contract came in very close to our engineering cost estimate, which is a refreshing sight to see with some of our
Wow.
projects. So,
Especially in the construction world.
Yep.
Absolutely. Whew. Does that mean there's light at the end of the tunnel?
I'm not sure about that yet, but we'll keep our fingers crossed.
How many times have you talked about this Linwood project? I mean, yeah, thank you. Any further questions on this?
We're ready to build something. That's all I got to say.
Yeehaw. Commissioner Scholl.
Yes, Dan, this contract includes all curbing and all paving?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
And I want to speak to that. Actually, do you mind? I have 1 second.
No.
These are difficult projects because these are in neighborhoods. They are probably the most challenging projects that we do. There's one thing to go out and build a street on a green field that's great, and you're out there and you're plowing through areas and building infrastructure. These just take more time because people have their built environments, they have their houses. We have extensive right-of-way files that we have to secure. They are challenged. They take a little bit more time, but they are a benefit to the community.
So you do, like Commissioner Scholl said, curbs and sidewalks, are those driveway entrances too that you have to do?
Correct.
All that?
And we do permitted easements, we do temporary construction easements. Some of these can be 50 to 80 different file types for our right-of-way groups to go have to secure, and those are negotiations they go do, so.
Okay. Further questions or comments? Seeing no objections, thank you.
Chair, would you please convene as the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District?
I will recess as the Development Authority and convene as the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District.
These are requests for consent agenda for the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District. Item 1, approval of a board order authorizing the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District to apply for a local government grant from the Oregon Parks and Recreation Department for the play area at the community park at the Concord property. Grant value is $500,000 with a $500,000 match. Funding is through the state grant with a match funded by the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District Capital Asset Fund. No county general funds are involved. Mike Bork from NCPRD. Go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair and Directors. I don't have much to add on to that, other than this is part of our charge was when we were trying to put this project together is to look for alternative funding sources. And this is part of that effort. The local government grant program, if you're not familiar, is our lottery proceeds funded through the Oregon Recreation and Parks Department. And so it does require a $500,000 match for the $500,000 ask. But that has for long been part of our budget for the Concord Park and Playground project. So the match is no hardship whatsoever and would provide us the needed funds to have an amazing award-winning playground on that site.
For $1 million, I hoped Shad would be award-winning.
It's
It's a far cry from an inner tube hanging from an oak tree.
absolutely, it's going to be a fantastic playground.
Yeah, absolutely. So where are you getting the $500,000 match to meet this grant?
It's in our asset development funds already that had been set aside for the Concord project.
And is that based on the tax revenues of the district?
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Scholl.
Yes, Mr. Bork, of the 5.94 acres of the Concord property, how much will this park play area take up? And is that being done with a site plan, a completed site plan of all the areas, the library, the community center, the park? Is that all done?
It's all coming together as we speak. So yes, the first part of your question, I believe, and I'd have to go back and look at the drawings that we've got, but I believe the area for the playground itself is about 13,000 square feet. So it's a sizable area. It's going to be a sizable playground, which is what the community had requested in our needs assessment.
Yeah. Wonderful, thank you.
Commissioner West.
Will the park have the ability to accommodate children who may have disabilities?
Absolutely. That was one of our design criteria, was to design the ideal, which was a nature play playground, which we had already come to you with the Metro Local Share funding for that part. And then the secondary part, what we're calling the Phase 2, although we hope to do them concurrently, just two different funding sources, is this the community inclusive park. So there's everything from ground level merry-go-rounds that people can access, even including what I love to see in inclusive design is a wheelchair accessible area that's raised off the ground where somebody in a wheelchair or with mobility issues can actually get onto the second story of a climbing tower and be able to experience and kind of overlook an area. So there's been a lot of very considerate and very focused attempts to make this as inclusive as possible. It won't be considered fully inclusive because of the nature play elements, but it's going to have a lot of inclusive elements and be very much higher level of standard than what we have seen before in the district.
Thank you.
Commissioner Schrader.
Yeah, I really think you're doing a great job with Concord, and I'm glad you're going to do a first class.
Thank you.
That's
I'm very excited to
fantastic.
see things moving forward.
Yeah, me too. Since 2003, really. It's been a while.
Yeah,
But I'm really glad
we're
you're
excited
doing
for
it.
all of the great things.
Okay, so dare I show my bias again? When you're going to do the landscaping, are you going to do pollination-friendly stuff again, or not? Maybe.
There's a landscaping plan, kind of to Commissioner or Director Scholl's point. There's a site plan. I'm not sure. I can't say right now that there's any pollinating or natural areas. Most of it is open kind of park space with a walking trail that kind of goes around the perimeter. That doesn't mean that we can't put some mason bee beds in areas. I'm sure our chair of the DAC would be in favor of that.
Okay, I guess that's who I have to talk to, huh?
Well,
Okay.
we'll be getting guidance from him on some of the other stuff. He's kind of a mason bee expert.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Okay, that'll happen then. All right.
Yep.
Thank you
All
for
right.
that.
Any further comments? Seeing no objections,
Thank
good
you.
luck. Hopefully you're successful.
Appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank you. And the second item will be posted, we'll push till next week. Chair, would you now please convene as the Board of County Commissioners?
I will recess as the North Clackamas Parks District and convene as the Board of County Commissioners.
These are requests for consent agenda for the Board of County Commissioners. First up, elected officials. This is the Sheriff's Office. Item 1, approval of an amendment extending duration and increasing funding to a contract with Mark 43 for records and property management software. The amendment value is $208,999.40 for 1 year. The total agreement value is increased to $1,218,989.04 for 6.2 years. Funding is through budgeted county general funds. Nancy Artman is the Finance Manager of the Sheriff's Office. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Administrator Schmidt. Good morning, Chair Smith, Commissioners. As mentioned, this is for an amendment, the first amendment to our agreement with Mark 43 for our records management system. This system has created many efficiencies within the Sheriff's Office in that records are not having to be hand-entered by employees. There are things in here such as police reports, property inventory at the property room, and other information that is law enforcement sensitive, and it has been a valuable tool for our business needs.
How long have you been using this type of records management?
Since 2017.
2017. And you said it's much more efficient. Have you been able to save any FTE by employing this software and using this firm?
We've not had to add additional FTE, and we were able to resource existing FTE to other parts of operations.
How many FTE did you save when you employed this contract?
I would have to get back at you.
I need that answer. Thank you, Nancy. You don't have to supply it today, but I'd like to know that.
I will definitely provide that to you.
Thank you. Commissioners, any further? Mark?
Does this Mark 43 system link to the onboard computers in the patrol cars?
It does. So
In order to save time for the,
absolutely. It is a system that they use in real time wherever they are located.
Yeah.
It links to their computers, it links to our record staff, and all personnel who have a need to access it have access as well.
okay, good, thanks.
Thank you. Seeing no objections, thank you very much.
Thank you, and I will provide that information to you.
Yes. Gary, what's next?
The next item for transportation and development at staff request will be pushed until next week. There's some more refinements that need to be made on that, so we're going to pull that until next week. Next, Health, Housing, Human Services. Item 1, approval of a revenue agreement with Care Oregon for the 2023 Dental Payment Incentive Program. The agreement value is $300,000 for 1 year. Funding is through Care Oregon. No county general funds are involved. Rod Cook, Director, Health, Housing, Human Services. Go ahead.
Good morning, Commissioners. This is a dental payment incentive program from Care Oregon. It's an alternative payment model that they're using that provides financial incentives to providers based on specific metrics. The program's goal is to increase member visits and covered service utilization while improving members' overall dental health. The amendment is a motivator to increase the number of new patients, number of visits by Care Oregon members, number of diabetic patients receiving dental services, and increase the number of preventive services provided to children.
Nice. Commissioner Schrader?
Yeah, thanks for that, Rod. So how is this managed? I mean, do you have dental offices, a one-site stop where?
Yes,
people
there's one at the
receive dental
across the street from Gladstone High School. There's one. That's one of our clinics. I believe there's dental services in Sandy Clinic, and there's dental services here on campus here at Beaver Creek.
Okay,
that I didn't know about right offhand.
That's fantastic because dental health really is key to the rest of our health.
Yes,
I won't
absolutely.
wax eloquent. Ben knows more than I do as a nurse, but it's a key piece.
Heart
That's-
health.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
A healthy heart if you have bad teeth.
exactly right, yeah. So thanks for that. This is fantastic.
Question?
Mr. Shaw?
Yes, Rod, let me understand this. This money is for supporting people who come to our clinics who don't have other insurance from dental care, is that correct?
This, some of these people could be on Oregon Health Plan. It's really an incentive to us, so it gets us to promote the services more and to go out and look for these patients. So it's bringing in more of the Care Oregon folks. So they're on the plan, but they're just not utilizing the services. So this is going to help us. we're incentivized for bringing more and more patients in and getting them to do the dental service part of their health.
I see, okay, thank you.
Seeing no further questions, go ahead.
Item 2, approval of a personal services contract with the Mental Health Association of Oregon for adult peer-delivered services, mobile crisis response team. Contract value is $624,234.98 for 22 months. Funding is through the Oregon Health Authority. No county general funds are involved.
So this is a nonprofit that we'll be funding. They'll provide in-person mobile crisis intervention services to anyone in the county experiencing a behavioral health crisis in community-based settings. This is a 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days per year, regardless of insurance. So this is the one that will go to, it doesn't matter what your insurance is, if you're in a home or something like that, this team will respond to that at any moment.
Wow, thank you very much. Questions or comments? Seeing no objections.
Item 3, approval of a local subrecipient grant agreement with Living Islands, nonprofit for education and outreach to the Pacific Islanders community for the Commercial Tobacco Prevention Community Grant. Grant value is $20,000 for 6 months. Funding is through the Oregon Health Authority. No county general funds are involved.
Yeah, this one's going to sound familiar. You've been approving a lot of these lately. This particular one is a nonprofit that works with Pacific Islanders, and so that's who they'll be focusing these tobacco prevention efforts on.
You have a question? Nope.
No.
Seeing no objections?
Item 4, approval of an amendment increasing funding of an intergovernmental agreement with the Oregon Health Authority to finance community mental health, addiction treatment, recovery and prevention, and problem gambling services. The amendment value is $299,790.71 for 6 months. The agreement value is increased to $15,398,689.98 for 1.5 years. Funding is through the Oregon Health Authority. No county general funds are involved.
Yeah, this is somewhat of a housekeeping piece. This is where we weren't being paid what we should have been paid, so they're increasing that payment amount. The amendment now corrects a 6-month funding received by the Behavioral Health Division through the contract. It's going to provide 24-hour crisis and support line, 24/7 mobile crisis, forensic services, and to contract with mental health and substance use providers to serve individuals who are not covered by the Oregon Health Plan. So this is another one that if you're not on the plan, we can still serve you through these funds.
Wow, great. Questions or comments?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Rod, when the Quality Inn comes online, will residents be able to be supported by this?
Yes, the way this is written, because they would be in a facility, and so if there's a mental health crisis, this could respond. But our hope is that we would have something focused specifically for the in-home. So I'd say they get both. They'd have access to both.
All right, thanks.
Seeing no objections, thank you.
Thank you.
Those are all the requests for consent agenda. All of these items will be on this Thursday's business meeting agenda. Next, legislative update. Trent Wilson from Public and Government Affairs will present. And there was a memo, apologies, it was not distributed to you till this morning, although it was submitted on time by staff yesterday. Go ahead, Trent.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Smith, Commissioners, and Administrator Schmidt. Back in front of you this morning with a bill important to Commissioner West about Senate Bill 449. This is the foster care bill. It would provide college tuition funding for foster children exiting care and entering college to pursue undergraduate degrees or trade schools or community college programs. It's pretty expansive. There's a companion bill. It's House Bill 2706, and it has an amendment that makes it even a little bit more broader, includes additional age groups, additional education programs. And right now, the county, or PGA anyway, is recommending we don't have a recommendation because this bill, if it were implemented, it would not affect the county's workload. We don't implement this work. And so this is a situation where we would defer to you as a priority for the board or not, but this is the information that we were able to garner. From H3S perspective, we have a number of staff who provide wraparound care who probably have clients who could benefit from a program like this, but they would not be implementing the program. And so that's where we got to our no recommendation. Senate Bill 449 has a work session posted for March 28th. And the other bill, which I think is moving a little bit it's already moved pretty quickly. It's already been passed out of its committee, recommended to Joint Ways and Means because it's a funding bill. It would provide tuition from the state to kids in foster care. So
How
I'm
much,
sorry.
how much money is involved in these bills?
I don't believe there was a number tied to the bill specifically, and that's why it was recommended or referred to Joint Ways and Means.
If the board wants to support this, I recommend we support but not make it a priority. We have set our priorities. And please understand, any bill that a commissioner wants to make a priority, our number one priority is the courthouse of a $60 million, unless we can find another way to fund it. Commissioner West, you're up.
Thank you, Board, for indulging me. Thank you to the staff for helping out with this. I will be testifying on the 28th on this Senate bill. I don't expect the county to make this a priority, but if the county sees this as a benefit to our residents and the clients that we serve that are vulnerable, that are aging out of the system, then I would like to have a letter of support from the county so that I can maybe present in my testimony from this board. I think this is good government. I think that this is where we can really help a population that many of them were wards of the state. Their parents technically were the state of no fault of their own. Mm-hmm. And when a kid goes through these adverse events throughout their life, they are much less likely to be able to access higher education, well-paying jobs, and a really meaningful, fulfilled future that other kids may not have to struggle with. And I think bills like this help our vulnerable population become more stable in our community. It helps our staff provide another resource to this population in H3S that they are already servicing. And right now, kids have to pick between being adopted or getting this benefit. And many of these kids are older, and their adoptive families never had the opportunity to save up money for their college fund. And I think this is a way for us to help this population and to have better societal outcomes because this will bring better stability to these kids. There's a little history with this bill. It's been run through a couple sessions already. Last time we ran it through, it was in the House. It was actually chief sponsored by Senator Bonham, who was Representative Bonham at that time, and Courtney Neron out of the Wilsonville area partnered together. If you look at this companion bill, it's hyper bipartisan. Mm-hmm. I remember standing in my nursing scrubs because I would work a graveyard shift. Then I would go straight from the hospital to Salem in my scrubs and go door to door to door with a one-pager, asking legislators to sign on to this just as a dad who cares. And we got it passed unanimously out of the House twice. It has been challenged by higher education, who I believe puts erroneous, crazy numbers attached to it so that they don't have to have any additional costs. This might be a few hundred kids in the state. Some of these kids are in Clackamas County that actually get to the point where they're older, they're aging out, and they qualify to go to college or a trade school. So this isn't a giant population, but this is a population that does need our help, and hopefully will spur on further kids seeking education. There was almost got out of Ways and Means last session. It ran out of time. I know Senator Betsy Johnson was trying real hard to get this through. So it has like an almost got there kind of multiple times, but some of us aren't quitting on this because we think it's good legislation, and I think it's good for local government to be aware of ways that we can provide meaningful support to this population. I believe Chair Smith voted for the original bill in the House. I think you were in the House when this happened, when the Republicans said, hey, we got to help these kids, and if they age out of the system, we still can't just wash our hands of responsibility. Let's give them free in-state tuition if they age out. There just was this unintended loophole on this one issue. So I think we can move forward and do good things with it. So I would love the board's support, not a priority, but something that we're aware of that we'd like to see done, and I like the authority to say that in my testimony.
You're testifying on the 28th, which is a Tuesday, at 7 days from now, and you asked for a support letter from this board. Gary, do we have time to do that and have it approved?
So our practice is the staff is allowed to write policy statements, which PGA staff just does. They're not formal letters signed by the board. That's what I'd recommend. If you do ask for a letter, we're sort of out of time. Could we do a policy statement instead?
Can you do that, Trent?
Yes, ma'am.
Because then it'll take time coming back and forth and wordsmithing it. We just need to, hey, support it's a good deal. right? Commissioner Schrader.
Yeah, I didn't have my light on, you just saw my hand.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Oh, so the other thing that has not been a priority for this board, but I've had Christina, just to give you guys a head up, tracking is the childcare bills. And I'm not asking you to do anything because we have to stay focused. I get that. But I do appreciate the fact that as individual commissioners, if there's something that we say to the board, we want to go down and support this, and you folks don't object, that's great. And in particular, I think this bill has died. I think it was a facilities bill that would have given more money for infrastructure, and I'll just get Christina to make you aware of that. I don't think it went anywhere, but I've been interested in this because our workforce board is working on childcare as something that can help people get back to work, stay employed, and all the other good things, so on and so forth. So,
Okay,
right?
perfectly fine.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments? Gary, do you have?
I'm hearing you're supportive then for the
Yes.
county to support this bill.
Yes, if you would, please. That would be great. Thank you for bringing us forward.
Thank you.
Up next.
All right, next, review of your business meeting agenda for this Thursday, March 23rd at 10 a.m. You have all the consent agenda items you approved today to go forward, and you have a public hearing on the withdrawal of territory from the Canby Area Parks and Recreation District. This is a request of the Canby Parks District, so that will be a public hearing this Thursday. If you have any questions on any of these items, please let me know, and staff is happy to answer them for you prior to Thursday. This is very quick today, Commissioners. The last item is Commissioner Communications.
Jeff Munns, do you want to come up for some reason?
Only if you have questions about the Canby Area Parks and Rec.
Oh, okay.
You want to
yeah.
come and do that? We have time today? And then go ahead. Please introduce yourself.
Yes, Jeffrey Munns, Assistant County Counsel, and this is the petition presented by the Canby Area Parks and Recreation Board. They are seeking to withdraw territory from their district to shrink the district. Essentially, it's the city boundaries of the city of Canby and a few areas north of the city up to the river, and then south of the city also to the river in that area. And so the folks for the board are going to come to the public meeting on Thursday to present testimony in support of their petition to withdraw territory. They say that they have some documents for me to put into the record in support of this petition, but I haven't received those at this time. Once I do, I will present them to the board for inclusion in the record.
Great.
So there's not much more to this one. I can talk about the standard if you have any questions, but basically the standard is if it's not feasible for the Parks District to provide services to the area to be withdrawn, it's appropriate to approve the petition.
Okay.
This district does not have a permanent rate and really has not been operating since it was formed in 1964. So it is not feasible to provide services since they have no funds. They're not providing services, but it is the same service that the entire district gets. So I think that it's a difficult situation in the sense of how it lines up with the statute, but it would be appropriate in this case to approve the petition if you so choose.
Yeah, they've been working on this a long time.
They have.
Yeah.
It's a
Thank you
first
for
step in their
bringing
process,
in on
yes.
this. It's appreciated. Any questions for Jeff at this time? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Gary, what's next?
Last item is Commissioner Communications.
I am going to talk about a request from Commissioner West regarding a resolution on homelessness and wraparound services. And I'm not asking for any action on it today, but I want the board to be made aware of, take a look at it, take a look at the language. Please get this to Commissioner Savas as well. I think he's ill, and so I'd like to take it up next week. But if we have time today, that's why I brought it up at the last minute, because I knew the agenda was short. So Commissioner West, would you like to talk about it?
Yeah, thank you. So this, I think it needs a couple tweaks in it, but overall, I think that this resolution encompasses what we've talked about with our strategic plan, the way that we want the county's culture and actions to address mental illness, drug addiction, homelessness, and these chronic issues that seem to be persistent here in the metro area. And I think it gets to the heart of those issues when we talk about core causes. And I believe it helps create the framework in which we take action. And the philosophy of this board makes it very public that this is our our philosophy as we address these issues, and this is how we see it. I also believe this could be very beneficial, as we are not the only local entity in Clackamas County to struggle with these issues, so do our 16 cities. And I think it would be a powerful statement to the region and the rest of the state if we, or maybe one of us or the county, offers the cities to take up this resolutions also in tandem with us as partners, as we work together as local governments to solve this issue. And so I think that could be a powerful statement, and I hope that this board does decide to adopt this resolution.
Okay, so when we bring this statement back, it refers to councils and cities, so I would like it to be rewritten to reflect Clackamas County.
That's right.
Also, the last whereas, it says, the commission believes that for harm reduction services to be effective, harm reduction is kind of a newer term coming up, and I'm not sure exactly what that means.
I can address that, Chair. So harm reduction is a giant umbrella term, and much of it, those practices under harm reduction, I don't believe this board would support, and we're critical of aspects of harm reduction. When you look at a care continuum of, let's say, a patient that's dealing with these issues, harm reduction could also be making sure they have Narcan in care. Right? It could be medical assistance when somebody's on fentanyl and we have to give them medical assistance to wean them off medication. Harm reduction is not, and there's aspects of it that are evidence-based and required, but some more radical practices like open-air drug dens and giving people foil and needles and watching them just slowly deteriorate. That is not the aspects of harm reduction that I believe this board supports. But within the medical term and industry terminology, that's why we talk about it being within a specific continuum of compassionate care. That includes prevention, intervention, treatment, and recovery, and much of actions by harm reduction do not necessarily include prevention, intervention, treatment, and recovery.
So I'm going to ask that this statement be rewritten to reflect what you're talking about. Number 8 is not clear to me, because the term harm reduction is controversial because people don't understand it. So I'm going to ask if you would rewrite that.
I can work on that.
Also, number 6, whereas the commission believes or agrees that open-air drug scenes create violence. Basically, that's just another term for outside, wherever they may happen. I don't have a problem with that either. That's also a term that's we have not used that much at Clackamas County. I'm not saying we can't use it, is my point. So there's a couple of new terms in here that may be pretty good. What I like about this document, that I think it directs staff specifically, that yes, this board is indeed very serious about causation and accountability of homelessness. So, Commissioner West, if you could rewrite number 8. Do any other commissioners have any comments on this piece of paper?
I think it's a great idea.
Mm-hmm.
It
Thank
really
you.
outlines us, and it gives us a framework, and it talks to our colleagues up north and everyone else that we are very committed to making this happen. Thank you, Commissioner West.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
It's good. Gary, does that make sense?
Yep.
And so we can probably bring it back next week at which session? Is it
Issues, next Tuesday.
Tuesday?
Yep.
Okay, thank you very much. We are on Commissioner Communication. Who wants to speak first? Martha, you want to go?
Sure. Boy, where do I start? Basically, I have been working with the Association of Oregon Counties because we asked a question to them and said, you know, what do we have a list of unfunded mandates? And off the top of their heads, they did not. Now, I'll be honest with you that you know an unfunded mandate when you see them. So I have talked to Gina Nichols, the executive director, and I've asked her, and I'm part of the executive team, to maybe start collating that information. There may be past information available. There's just been a lot of turnover in the organization before it stabilized again with Gina in charge. But I'm going to investigate that and make sure that that information is readily available, not only to us, but all the other counties in the area. The other thing I did is I talked to Ben, I think it's Ben Prey, who is doing the affordable housing pieces, both in Estacada and Malala, and I asked him, and I included all of the commissioners. I think we should go out there and do a tour of both initiatives, meet the mayors in the city, with the mayors and the city council people of both areas, Estacada as well as Malala, and, have a tour of their facilities and what they're doing and how they're doing it. Because I do think it's a good, very good thing that our rural communities are actually getting part of their affordable housing, act together so they can house people there. So if you get anything in the email from that, please, let's try and find a date where everybody can go. Also, with the interview that I had yesterday with, the outreach folks that we're going to be doing for the Quality Inn purchase, I suggested that we also do an outreach to the Happy Valley, and this is just my idea, Happy Valley City Council, that we invite them to the actual site, that we give them a tour, and that we have a sit-down with the entire council dealing with what the program's going to be and how that is going to be managed and handled. I think that that would help us tremendously. I think it would build a rapport with them. I think it would help alleviate a lot of the other angst that they've expressed. And I think it would be a good public outreach with our cities. So that's what I've been thinking of lately. Okay, what are we doing with our various cities? What are we doing for outreach for them, and how are we helping them succeed as we go through a housing crisis in this network? The other thing is I wanted to clarify something I said last week, because I had a question from Mr. Weir about this. And when I said community development block grants, okay, he said, but it's formula-based. And I said, he's absolutely correct, it's formula-based. I understand that. But what you do when you're trying to make sure that the funding stream becomes constant, you don't want the federal government to cut back the overall amount of community development block grant funding. Because if it gets cut, even with a formula, we will not get the same level of revenue stream that we need in order to pull that together. So I hope that answers that question with that. That's why it's important to be there and make sure that our federal partners, because we're so dependent on federal dollars for our human services system in so many ways, that we have to make sure that they maintain that level of funding, and that's part of what we do. I had a great meeting, believe it or not, with my friend and colleague Janelle Bynum the other day.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I was just kind of having a breakfast with her, seeing where things were going with the CHIPS piece, and I believe that something did pass in the Senate. I'm not sure it's exactly what people want, but at least something is moving ahead with that. And so she gave me an update. With that, and I talked a little bit about Happy Valley with her and the growth that we're experiencing there and the Sunrise Corridor. And this was just because she's one of our legislators, and I've been meaning to talk to her for a while and just get to know her as a friend and as someone who is on our side here in Clackamas County. Finally, I just wanted to point out, folks, I am sending you every weekly update I get from Michael, from Matthews, from the thing, so go ahead and read that information. It'll give you a huge update on what's been happening and what we've been working on. I think one of the key things I picked up on is with the new CHIPS Act, they are going to be evidently pushing childcare as part of that. So that's one of the reasons I'm looking at childcare, to see what that might mean, how that could happen. What would it mean to our county if we're going to attract these kinds of businesses in order to meet that particular requirement? I thought it was interesting how it came to be, because it was really the Department of Commerce that said, well, we're going to make a rule that this is part of that whole package. So I'm trying to make sure we don't get caught, that we give our businesses an opportunity to do that. And what I've been looking at is the KinderCare model, because oftentimes that entity is often used by our larger businesses to actually provide on-site childcare. So it's one business, KinderCare, which is a childcare institution business. It's working with another business in order to provide that opportunity for their employees and how that helps them maintain and keep employees and working for them. So anyway, that's what I've been up to, guys. So,
Thank you.
Great. Okay.
Commissioner Scholl, you're up.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to thank Mayor McGriff and the Oregon City Council for the informative State of the Community presentation last Thursday. It looks to me like the city of Oregon City is in very good hands. Also, a heads up, tomorrow will be the next Metro Policy Advisory Committee meeting. We're going to discuss updates on supportive housing services and affordable housing bond funds, and also a briefing on the process for the 2024 urban growth management process, and finally a discussion on the future of the Expo Center. And then on Thursday, I have a meeting with the 82nd Avenue Transit Project Steering Committee again. This will be our fourth meeting to look at ideas for high-capacity transit along Line 72 on 82nd Avenue. And of course, the concern there is competition between high-capacity transit dedicated bus lanes and the need to preserve traffic lanes for our people from Clackamas County. Thank you.
Great. Commissioner West.
Well, we talked about the resolution. We'll work on that. I don't have much more to add, I think, beyond that. I do want to say that on my, 77 days here, have really, I want to make clear that, at least for me, I believe that Martha has brought back a lot of value in her efforts. And I want to make sure that her efforts are not mischaracterized, and I find you to be a very valuable, important part of this board. And I mean that, and I know that I've already learned a lot from the things that in my short time here from what you've done. I know we're all trying to do the best we can to advocate for this county. We all love where we live, and we're trying to work in unison to do that. And yeah, I just want to say that I appreciate the work you're doing, especially with AOC and the child care effort. I want to learn more about that and the workforce issue. I think my child care advocacy and those kids being educated and ready for the workforce is part of that.
Yeah.
It's the same thing, right? I feel so much in tandem with what you're saying and working with private industry to provide these assets to working families and supporting families. So I'm sure we'll talk more offline, but I just wanted to say that in support of you.
Well, we'll get a lot done. It'll be fun. It'll be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for commissioners for concentrating on the family. I believe it's a core unit that the success to society as a whole starts with the family unit, and keeping the family unit intact, healthy, and safe so they can prosper and eventually come on to lead all the jobs that we're doing here. I met last night with my counterparts in Washington and Multnomah County, called the Tri-Chairs meeting, and it's always a lively conversation, and I learn a lot from my Tri-Chairs, from my two other chairs, as they say they learn from me, which is always amazing. But I think the biggest value we get out of that is recognizing that each county is very different, and also recognizing that we're dealing with the same issues. And how do we go about it? And they have the same struggles that we do, believe it or not. And sometimes it looks like maybe one county is more prosperous than maybe what we're doing here, for instance, on the homeless situation. So there's been in the news lately that Clackamas County is being sued over Project Turnkey, and I brought that up during the meeting. And it was said to me, well, in Multnomah County, they get sued on every single homeless project they do, from a shelter, from Project Turnkey. And she says, they just line up. This guy in the neighborhood sues us. And you know what? I said, okay, we're not alone out here in Clackamas County. Washington County said, yeah, we've been down that road before too. So it's not unique to our situation. It's just the times we find ourselves in. Very difficult times that we're in, and frankly, I've never seen anything like it. I've been an observer or participant in politics since 1987, when I went on my first lobby trip to Washington, D.C. I was 30 years old, so I'm dating myself here. Was my very first job was lobbying the United States Congress. And I knew that if I went back and explained to the people in Congress how badly this bill was going to affect Oregon, and I reasoned with them, and if I gave them the facts that this was going to hurt our schools, that this legislation was going to take money away from our infrastructure like hello roads, hello sewer systems to our small towns, as we've heard testimony for, that they would correct their action and not go ahead with a vote. And I came home, I went full of vim and vigor and ambitious, and I came home thinking, oh my gosh, they don't give a rat's ass basically at what happens in Oregon. And it was a moment of reflection to me, and I said, if I ever get in a position in politics, and I was not considering running for anything at the time, boy, if I ever got in a position that I can't listen to people and hear them, or if I fail to do something, I don't ever want to be like this. Don't ever want to be like this. And I don't think I am. I think we, as a board, we do listen to people who may be in disagreement on the policies. But there also comes a time when we have to make a decision and move forward on some things that might be controversial at the time, but proven to be successful. And let's use the courthouse, our replacement courthouse, as an example. It was a very hard decision for this board to make and go forward on. And it was not a unanimous decision. And we knew we would have to right-size our budget. We knew going forward we have to make some very critical decisions, and we're doing it. And I think it's an opportunity, what we're doing with the budget. I think we need to look at core county services. Seriously, commissioners, I'm going to email you that document yet again. And we need to look at that as we're moving ahead on the budget. And the really nice attribute that I've learned is that we got an award. We have this really design award for efficiency on financing and design award from Texas, for the national organization that convened in Texas. And Nancy Bush told me that Clackamas County was really the highlight of that entire national conference. And evidently they have applied for a North American award based on our project. So that's something that we can take to the naysayers, that we are looking at implementing programs maybe from outside the box thinking, that we are doing things differently, and we can be very proud of that, that we're trying very hard to do things differently. So seeing no further business before this commission, we are adjourned. Thank you.